Assemble! Stay dandy, baby. Greetings, my fellow heroes. It's time to talk about a very exciting episode of My Hero Academia, an episode where Deku unleashes a brand new ability. But before we get to that, I just want to say we're going to do things a little different in this review today. I did have an opportunity to watch the last episode of the series. I recorded my review, but I didn't have time to edit it. So I'm going to go ahead and include it in this video right here, and then I'm going to talk about the latest episode. And I'm very short on time as well, so there's probably not going to be any imagery in this video, so forgive me. I'll try to include that in the next review, but I just want to give my quick thoughts on the latest episode as well as the one that I did last week. So let's go ahead and jump in. Oh, and by the way, if you guys are liking my content, maybe think about subscribing to the channel so you can check out all of my other reviews and discussions and all my other videos, and maybe hit the like button if you like this video, and of course think about checking me out on Patreon. Monthly donations are really important to this channel, and remember, first time donators, I'll review an anime series of your choice. Okay, ready? Let's jump in. The Joint Training Session arc, the battles between Class A and B, have been really exciting for the 5th season of My Hero Academia, and there's been a pattern that's been forming for the last couple of episodes ever since this big tournament began, where most of these battles were going to be split into 2 separate episodes. But is it no shock to anyone that the battle that involves Katsuki Bakugo ends really fast, really flashy, and with a lot of freaking explosions? Not to mention getting to see a massive character change for everybody's favorite explosive asshole. That's right, my friends. It's another exciting episode of My Hero Academia. Spoiler warning if you haven't checked out the episodes so far, as this one actually ended up being pretty freaking surprising. I really loved this episode, and it's all because of Katsuki Bakugo, a character who from the beginning of the series was always interesting, if only for his ridiculous and super angry, pissed off personality. A character who, despite the fact that he's still very rough around the edges, very gruff and loud, and very much into his very own self, has changed tremendously, and I'm so glad for that. My biggest fear for Katsuki Bakugo is that he was going to end up becoming the Sasuke Uchiha of the series. The Vegeta, if you will. The Dark Avenger, who would eventually become a villainous-esque character before eventually returning to who he was. But he went down a completely different route. Katsuki Bakugo has always been the bully, but now he's the bully with a heart of gold. Ever since that big last battle that he had with Deku and learning about his connection with All Might, Katsuki has gone through a massive transformation. He still wants to be the #1 hero, he still wants to be the strongest, but now he knows to do that, he simply cannot do it on his own, and in order to become stronger, he also has to hone all of his hero skills, not just being the most powerful, but also having the ability to work with other heroes and to save people all at the same time. And that's basically what this entire episode was all about, where the first half of the episode tried to trick us a little bit, showing us that this was the classic Katsuki Bakugo that we've always seen. The guy who goes in head first and doesn't care about his teammates and just looks out for #1, that being himself. But we actually get to see that he has changed quite a bit, and this is definitely a big shock not only to his team, but to their opposing opponents from Class B. They did not expect to see a Katsuki Bakugo who was going to go in guns a-blazing, but also at the same time looking out for his teammates and trying to save them all at once, and in turn bolstering their confidence and making them all the more powerful. The fact of the matter is, getting right to the end of this episode, Class A wins without a shadow of a doubt with the most best way possible. They pretty much finished the entire match in about 5 minutes, and that's because they all work so harmoniously together. And it was an interesting combination of characters. Like I said, you got Katsuki Bakugo in there, but then you have the tape hero, Hanta. He was also really awesome in this episode, but he was also complemented by, I think, one of the dark horse characters of the series, Rikido, who I cannot wait to see more of him, just for the fact that his entire character looks so ridiculous. He looks like an ultimate muscle wrestler, but he punches characters like someone out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. And then, of course, you have Kyoka, who is the Earjack hero. Again, everybody complements one another so much in this episode, with basically Katsuki letting them know that he's gonna go in head first and fight, but at the same time, if he's ever in trouble, they will have to save him. And it works so perfectly in this episode, and they really made it seem like their opponents were going to be very destructive here, the way they were building up the guys in Class B. And there were certainly some interesting characters. Again, the most fun thing about Class B in this entire arc is getting to learn about the new characters and what all of their abilities are. And there are definitely some interesting ones here, such as Bondo, who is a glue man. He basically has the ability to shoot glue all over the place. That's his special ability, and it's freaking weird. We also have the one welding guy. Unfortunately, his name escapes me at the moment. I think it's Iwase. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. But he has the ability to weld things to people's body, and he tries to do that with Katsuki in this episode. That doesn't really end up working all that well. You have Kamagiri, who basically is like a living bug man who can create blades from all over his body. Visually speaking, just a really cool looking character, very monstrous and super fast. But the big character that they were building up the most was Takagi in this episode, who is a girl who has one of the weirdest abilities that I've ever seen. It's like a lizard splitting ability. What that basically means is, have you ever like seen those lizards that when they're captured by something and they escape, they can like basically have their tails fall off their bodies so that they can escape from anywhere, or even just certain limbs and body parts? That's basically what she can do, except that it's on a completely different level. Takagi actually has the ability to separate her body into multiple pieces, apparently up to 50 pieces, which can all move independently of one another, and that makes her a very interesting opponent. And this, combined with all of her other classmates, made it seem like their ability was going to be perfect for trapping all of their opponents. With the glue, with the welding, with the fact that you have a character who can create blades and get in there and attack close, and then of course Tokage, who can practically come from 50 different directions all at once. And yet, Katsuki and his team managed to absolutely just dominate them the entire time. I think the best moment was when you finally got to see Katsuki actually like helping out his teammates and saving them. Like when Jiro was actually about to be attacked, he jumped in and actually ended up saving the day. Or even freaking better when you had Katsuki himself, who ended up getting welded to all of these pipes, and then Rikido comes in JoJo style, saving him all at the same time. And I loved this moment because there were no words between the characters, but you could tell that Katsuki was very impressed by what Rikido did here, and they were all sort of supporting each other perfectly. Even Hanta, a character who mostly is played for laughs in the series, did a great job in stopping Tokage's abilities by allowing him to use his tape to take down all of her various body parts, thus weakening her. Apparently these body parts can eventually dissolve and she can just grow them back, but as he mentions, just like a character like Momo, it's going to take a lot of power to actually grow these body parts back, thus it's going to make her very weak. And it's what allowed them to basically just completely overwhelm them with all of their abilities. And watching Katsuki just fly around with all of his like big explosions and everything is what truly made this episode something special. It was a sight to behold, to say the least. And like I said, it was an overwhelming victory. This is not going to be like the previous battles where we're just going to have to go through two at a time and that's like it. No, they completely dominate here, and it was freaking awesome. With a bunch of characters that I didn't expect were going to work so well together, Katsuki truly has changed, and this is his episode. But he was so thoroughly supported by his other teammates that really, it just made me fall in love with those characters all the bit more. And then they don't even waste any time. They're getting ready to get to the final battle here, which of course is going to feature the main character, Deku. The hype is real for this one because I want to see how far he's grown as well. If they had this episode make Katsuki Bakugo look this good, I really hope that the main character is going to have a moment to shine here, especially with the teammates that he's working with. We already know that he's really great friends with Ochako. Ochako seems to have a lot of respect for Deku and also seems to be very much in love with him, so that relationship is going to be interesting to see alone. But getting to see Minoru and Mina teaming up with them, I think is going to be really fun. This is a group of very weird characters, and I'm not quite sure what their overall strategy is going to be, but Deku seems to be displaying a lot of confidence and also just being sort of like, you know, hyped up by seeing all of these battles and seeing Katsuki and wanting to outpace him as well. There's this really awesome friendly rivalry between these characters, which, you know, at the beginning of the series, the relationship between the characters was so venomous, and while Katsuki still is very loud and brash and wants to be better than Deku, there is this extreme friendly rivalry here, which is not unlike All Might and Endeavors from the past, which I think is really awesome. But I'm just so hyped to see what the next battle is going to be, as well as because it's also kind of like a big rematch between Shinso and Deku as well. So I think that that's going to be really exciting. Just, there's so much hype. Right as the battle's about to begin, boom, the end credits start. I'm so excited to see what's next for this competition and where the rest of the season is going to go after this one, because this season has just opened up with a ton of action, and it's been sort of like a great display of all of these characters' powers, how they've grown, and I can't wait to see how Deku, the main character, is going to do, because he's been basically in the background for this entire season, so this is going to be an opportunity to see what's next for everybody's favorite green-clad hero. So what's the rundown on this episode of My Hero Academia? If you can't tell, I really loved this one, especially because it all involved Katsuki Bakugo, who's also always just one of the most fun characters to watch in the series. His personality is just so extreme. His powers are really fun to watch. He's got a great-looking hero costume. But it's amazing how the last couple of seasons have had a massive effect on his character while he still manages to retain his classic personality. I'm glad that they found a way to balance these things, because I never want to see Katsuki Bakugo mellow out. I always want him to be dumb, loud, crazy, jumping in. And dumb might not be the best word. He is a very intelligent hero and actually does have legitimate good plans here. It's just his overall personality and the way that it actually works. I've always found it very funny in the series. And I've always said, too, that like his personality is just perfect for his overall character, because his powers involve blowing shit up. That's exactly what he does as a character, and it's just great. I've always really loved that. Again, this was production value-wise, I think another really great-looking episode. Watching Katsuki fly around is great, but all of the other characters on his team, as well as the opposing team, had some really great animated moments, which I thought were really fantastic. Like I said, I'm a big JoJo fan, so I love that moment where Rikido was using his Sugar Rush punches. I just thought that looked really great, but again, Katsuki Bakugo just flying around and exploding people at point-blank range looks really great. I wish we could have seen like how he actually took out Tokage when he did that sort of like Kamehameha blast style technique when he put his hands together. We just see like a big giant blinding flash of light. But still, I just thought it was so visually really awesome. Like I said, Class B was really cool too. I love Tokage's costume. The fact that she's like a lizard girl. She has this sort of like lizard pattern like costume all over her body. I thought that looked really awesome. The glue dude just looks weird. His head is just one of the creepiest damn things that I've ever seen. He looks like a freaking Silent Hill monster. Mantis Man, freaking Kamakiri, he looks just really awesome. He kind of looks like a freaking Digimon or a Pokemon, I don't know, in hero form, but he looks really awesome. The fact that he can create blades from his body, not just to attack, but to like, embed himself in walls and move really fast. I thought that's all really creative and cool looking stuff. Really visually speaking, this is a really great looking episode, but my hopes are just through the roof for what's going to happen next with all of the battles that we're going to see between, Deku and Shinso's team. Freaking Monoma returning, I think, is also going to be awesome, because that little asshole's been just talking his head off for the last couple of episodes, and I can't wait to see how he's going to fare in this battle, and I'd really like to see Deku just knock his lights out, to be perfectly honest. But his abilities combined with Shinso, I think, are going to be really awesome. With his ability to copy things, Shinso's ability to brainwash people, that makes them quite the deadly combination. So I have a feeling that this one isn't going to be like this episode, where they just go in and destroy everybody in 5 minutes. I have a feeling this is going to be a more drawn-out and interesting-looking battle. But that's just my thoughts. Again, I don't read the manga, so I don't quite know what's going to happen, but I can't wait to see what class is going to win. Either way, I think it's going to be a really big surprise. But I really loved this episode right here, if you can't tell. I thought it was really solid material, so that's why I'm going to drop a 5 out of 5 on this episode. Just pure, awesome entertainment value from this one. I loved all of the characters in this episode. It was just really solid stuff. And now it's time for the latest episode of the series, and I think it's safe to say that the hype around this one was just astronomical for me, because I finally wanted to see Deku go all out and show how far he's come and see how strong that he's actually gotten. And this episode was emotional in a way that I honestly did not expect, and it was filled with so much tension that honestly it left me kind of at the edge of my seat the entire time, as it seems like things were actually going to go really well for Deku and his team, as he was jumping around like a freaking madman getting ready to unleash some brand new abilities. But it's when he ended up going up against Monoma that things got really bad. So the cool thing about Monoma is the fact that he has the copy ability, and he can copy all the abilities of his teammates, all of which get more of a formal introduction in this episode, which is really great. The one smaller kid, the chubby kid who's wearing the Scouter from Dragon Ball Z, he basically has the ability to do like a double impact, so like if he punches you once, you'll get hit a second time in the exact same spot with just way more power. There's a girl who can shrink and enlarge things, and then of course there's one of my favorites. I think her name is Yanagi. She uses poltergeist abilities, which basically means she can sort of like touch objects and move them around at will. And then you have a character like Monoma who can copy all of these things and use these abilities for up to a couple of minutes, which makes him very dangerous, as they also have Shinso on their team, which means he can use his quirk combined with his ability to copy things. Monoma is definitely a character you really got to look out for, but it's his personality which always manages to be his ultimate weapon, and he uses that to great effect against Deku in this episode, essentially berating him for the fact that one time when Katsuki Bakugo got caught, and it was in this moment that Deku sort of lost control of his power. And this was sort of foreshadowed in the beginning of the episode when you had this moment where All Might actually had a phone call from Gran Torino where they're talking a little bit more about things that were going on with Gigantomachia, and then of course there's the whole thing with the One for All ability where all the previous users are waiting for that specific moment where it's going to be cultivated at its best, and they don't quite know when that's going to be. And this has All Might very worried, especially in this battle, when Deku finally starts to lose control of his abilities, where we see something we've never seen before. All of these black, very dark green tendrils start exploding out of his hand and basically just destroying everything around them. All of the landscape is destroyed, his teammates aren't safe, his opponents aren't safe, and even All Might feels that they may have to call off this battle for how intense things are really starting to get. And at the height of all of it, he suddenly goes into that weird sort of extra-dimensional space where you can see the other, like, successors of One for All, and we finally get to see one, like, in full with real dialogue for the first time in the series, and it's this one big, badass-looking bald dude who has, like, these goggles on. He looks a lot like a more human version of Hellboy, and this guy has this really unique ability, which is known as the Blackwhip, and that's when it made me realize that some of the other members who used the One for All ability already had a previous quirk as well. So not only were they utilizing all that big super strength power that One for All is all known about, but it also amplified their quirks as well. And by them being a part of the cultivation of One for All means that Deku can actually manifest these other extra quirks as well. And that is freaking awesome. He not only has One for All, but he now has access to all of these other abilities, which I have a feeling are slowly going to start manifesting as the series goes on. But essentially, this big guy ends up giving Deku a pep talk, basically saying, don't give up. You just got to keep fighting. You got to go in with all of the strength that you can possibly muster if you want to wrangle in these abilities and use them. And he reassures him that he has the ability to master One for All, as well as all of the other abilities which are going to eventually pop up. And then that's when we realize that, yeah, Deku's going to have access to this brand new super cool ability, which he's probably going to be able to wrangle in the next episode of the series, and I'm so excited to see what's going to happen with that. But there's a really solid moment here where Ochaku ends up, like, grabbing on to Deku, desperately trying to get him under control, and she actually uses Shinso's help to use his brainwashing abilities to bring him back to normal. And it's a really solid moment. And then the battle officially kicks off at this point, because as soon as he goes back to his senses, Monoma just comes in and starts attacking yet again, not even caring about anything that was going on here. And essentially, this is all just a build-up to what the true battle is going to be like. And man, it's just freaking incredible. I love it. I loved the drama and the tension in this episode. It's so different than anything from the previous battles that we have seen, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. What's the rundown on this episode of My Hero Academia? I loved this episode. As someone who really likes the main character of this series, I always get excited to see when there's episodes that involve Deku, and this is a really great moment because, again, it seems like every time he gets stronger, a brand new form of weakness manages to pop up and rear its ugly head, and now it's coming in the form of manifesting all of these hidden quirk abilities which lie within the One for All quirk itself. And seeing it manifest in this episode was nothing short of terrifying, if only for the fact that you could see the sheer horror on Deku's face, realizing that not only can he not control this power and not know what it is, but it could potentially hurt everyone all around him. It's, again, a very just great moment for the series, which, like I said, just totally had me gritting my teeth and just staring without even blinking at the screen. It was really damned awesome. But I'm really glad that Ochako managed to jump up and knock him out of his senses, and of course getting a little help from Shinso was also really freaking cool itself. Again, it's all a build up to that big rematch, I think, between Deku and Shinso, to see how it's all going to come. you know, even with all that, there are these little smaller moments in this episode, which I think did a great job of even building up on him as well, especially this little small talk he had with Monoma about how he's saying that they're quite similar to each other in many ways as well, and how their dreams as children have become sort of like a burden on who they are at this point. It's that type of deep, thought-provoking material that I didn't expect to get out of like what is supposed to be a big, crazy action episode, but it was still really welcome and awesome. And again, Class B students manages to be really, really cool. I love the way that the three particular members actually work with one another, with the poltergeist ability, the twin impact, and of course the resizing everything. The way that they're able to utilize all those at once make them surprisingly dangerous, and I can't wait to see how Deku and his team are going to combat that at this point. And I just can't wait to see all the individual battles and combinations and things that are going to happen next. Whether it's going to wrap up in the next episode or they're going to extend it out to a third one remains to be seen, but the hype is basically pretty real. While this was the start of this next battle, in many ways it still hasn't even really started yet. It was all mostly dedicated to some Deku and some drama stuff. And honestly, I thought it was pretty solid across the board. Production value-wise, another pretty solid-looking episode. You should definitely check it out. Yeah, I loved this episode. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. I thought it was one of those like mandatory viewing kind of episodes. So fans of My Hero Academia, you gotta check this one out. But you got my thoughts on the episode, and I would really love to get yours. So why don't you tell me what you liked about this episode, maybe what you didn't like, favorite moments, favorite character in this episode, what you hope to see from the future of this season, My Hero Academia. Let's talk about it. Discussion section. Let's do it. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby. So I'm actually going to include shit. What the fuck?